There are stories that governments bury so deep they almost vanish. Almost. This one begins not with a scream, not with a discovery, but with silence. A silence recorded on brittle reels of tape stored in a locked government archive and later leaked by a nameless whistleblower. That silence came from bunker E-13. In the early 1960s, during the height of the Cold War, the U.S. government, alongside unnamed private contractors, commissioned a series of psychological experiments in deep underground facilities. The purpose? At least officially, to understand how human beings would adapt to long-term isolation in confined spaces in preparation for extended space missions. Unofficially, the goals went further. Documents recovered decades later mention threshold phenomena and cognitive tearing. The test site chosen was a decommissioned fallout shelter in rural West Virginia. It had 3 floors, reinforced concrete walls, no windows, and a single elevator shaft sealed from the outside once the experiment began. It became known in the files as E-13. 7 volunteers were recruited. Michael Harper, 29, psychology student. Elise Gardner, 27, nurse. Daniel Price, 33, former soldier. Thomas Vale, 41, radio technician. Catherine Doyle, 24, writer, reportedly fascinated by the concept of isolation. Joseph and Mark Layton, twins, 22, construction workers. They were promised $5,000 each, a small fortune in the 60s. None of them were told how long the study would last. The bunker was outfitted with living quarters with bunk beds, a communal mess hall, storage rooms filled with preserved food and water, an observation room with a one-way intercom. There were no clocks, no natural light, no way to measure time. The experiment began on March 15, 1962. The heavy steel doors were sealed, and the world outside forgot them. At first, the tapes are almost mundane. Laughter, stories, card games, Catherine reading her unfinished novel aloud. But within days, they began to lose track of when they were sleeping. Some reported feeling as though days were missing. One of the twins, Mark, started keeping tally marks on the wall, but they quickly stopped lining up with the official log. The observers wrote, "Subject shows early signs of temporal disorientation, not unexpected." What they didn't expect were the sounds. On tape reel number 17, Elise asked the group, "Do you hear that? Someone's talking in the vents." No one responds at first. Then Joseph mutters, "It says my name." Over the following weeks, more reports appear. Voices, whispers that seem to come from behind the walls. Observers note that no external sounds could penetrate the bunker. The recordings confirm faint murmurs, though the source was never found. By the 3rd month, the group fractures. Michael stops eating, convinced the food has been poisoned. Catherine writes obsessively in her journal, covering pages with the same phrase, "The walls remember." Daniel, the ex-soldier, begins dismantling the intercom, saying he can hear orders being given through static. The twins fight constantly, accusing each other of changing faces at night. On day 92, the first violent outburst occurs. Thomas, the radio technician, smashes his hand against the steel door until bones break. His reason? "They keep calling me, from the other side." The observers make no move to intervene. The recordings become fragmented after this point. Screams, metal scraping against concrete, unintelligible chanting. One clear entry stands out from reel 41. Catherine shouting, "It's not the voices, it's the silence between them. Don't you hear it? It's waiting." On day 113, the intercom goes dead. When contact is reestablished, only 3 voices remain: Catherine, Daniel, and Joseph. Daniel is heard muttering prayers. Joseph sobs uncontrollably. Catherine's tone is calm, almost serene. Her last words captured on tape: "We are 7. We will always be 7. The walls will keep us." then static. On June 20, 1962, the doors to bunker E-13 were unsealed. What the recovery team found has never been officially released. Leaked notes from a classified debriefing mention 4 empty bunks, food stores untouched for weeks, walls scratched with hundreds of tally marks, forming spirals, a journal belonging to Catherine Doyle, pages blackened with charcoal dust. Of the 7 volunteers, only 2 bodies were recovered. The others were never found. The project was terminated. Files marked E-13 were buried under higher clearance codes. The official statement said the volunteers withdrew and were compensated. Families were pressured into silence. But fragments of the tapes surfaced in the 1980s. A retired archivist smuggled them out and passed them to a journalist, who vanished before publishing. Only one reel has ever been authenticated, Reel 17. The whispering voices can be faintly heard if amplified. Some say, if you listen closely, the whispers speak your name. In 2015, a group of urban explorers claimed to have found the sealed entrance to Bunker E-13. They posted photos, rusted steel doors, warning signs in faded paint, and the number 13 stenciled above. 2 weeks later, their social media accounts were deleted. None of them posted again. Locals in the area warn hikers to stay away. They say, at night, when the wind is still, you can hear tapping from beneath the ground, like someone knocking, waiting. There are many forgotten Cold War projects, most aimed at survival. But some, like Bunker E-13, seem to be designed to study something else entirely. Not survival, not endurance, but the breaking point. Maybe the experiment was never about preparing for space. Maybe it was about listening to what comes when the human mind is pushed too far. And if Catherine was right, then the walls of Bunker E-13 do remember. The only question is, what did they remember about you?